The Diary of Thoughts, Part 5. Imagination, Dreams and Images, written by c.Pacheco. The attribution of values is a constant element in life and our society. This attribution depends on thoughts, and images also generates those thoughts. Images are crucial regarding establishing differences between things and people. There will always be images that live along with our existence, either visual or virtually created in our minds. There are images generated by our brain when we dream. This particular context means that dreams have their life, they have their dynamics. We can say that they represent the world within a world. Blind people create their images and realities as they have their visions about sounds, movements, and shapes that surround them. Those inner images are not forcibly worse or different from those we have. It's a different world, but the inner images have also their attributes, their structure, their logic and their reality. Let's not forget that there are people who have eyesight but are blinder than the ones who don't have that capability. Images are brought to our eyes and transmitted to our brains through several sources, natural and artificial. Images can be an object of manipulation and intended self-purposes of power and greed. Our society is conducted not only by methods but also by images. Images can create our ideas and concepts about different contexts and values. That's why sometimes we say you give me a bad image. Recently I wrote something based on images, trying to explain the flow and the influence of images on our souls, our perceptions, our feelings and finally our knowledge. It's like a movie in front of our eyes that makes us react, think and understand at a personal level what's going on around us and making us integrate on this virtual reality that we're living in.
Images passing by. Images passing by like clouds, moving in the sky with no destination, being free. Images passing by on the corridor of our mind, our way to find our creation, the evasion from the ugly. Images passing by while walking, while talking, and sharing thoughts. Images passing by in our soul, the reality of getting old, yet still living our youth. Images passing by, bringing us the notion about the universal motion, the force, the stream, the dream about life. Images passing by, making us realize the truth, in disguise, the reality behind the clarity of the blind.
Through the presentation of images, governments can manipulate people's minds by introducing images that represent individual values they defend. Those images can have positive or negative consequences depending on the honesty of those who created those same images. Each image is a message that our brains interpret and leads us to a judgment or a decision. That's how our brains react. The manipulation of images and their messages can be a deadly weapon at an individual or global level. A person can show a bad, good or false image, so at a private level, we are also exposed to that situation. This attitude is one of the motives that cause the most difficulties about relationships. If I start to talk now about manipulation, some people might think that I am already attacking the instituted power, so I'll try to put it in other words, not that this document becomes a political issue. Anyway, everything is political because there are politics involved in everything that we do or think. But clearly, the manipulation through images can be created at the level of publicity or advertising, since they intentionally create images to cause us an oriented interpretation about them. The manipulation of images is a science that can be used accordingly with the different purposes of society, mostly from the established political power or marketing campaigns and extended to several different areas and sectors about our daily living. It's not by mere chance that power detains knowledge and science. Don't forget that everything can be used to cause good or bad. There was a person who invented the atomic energy. Somebody else thought about using it to kill people and others created sources of power to bring us the commodity and necessity of energy. As life is nothing but energy and logic, once again human beings subverted the purpose of the information that was given by the creation, using that data to attain their purposes of greed and power. A simple knife can be used to eat our food or to kill somebody. A stone to accept that nature created the stone, but man created the knife. It's true that the science of manipulating images makes an intrinsic part of our society. There was one person who adopted Freud's principles to create a method to induce people to buy several kinds of articles, namely Coca-Cola. Later on, those same methods were adopted by the American government for political purposes. We can call it manipulation of thoughts. Campaigns of massive advertising can generate unmeasured profits. People can even be led to certain states of mind, which implies that the mind can be manipulated. It's simply a manipulation of thoughts. Movies are one example of the transmission of images to express several contexts, messages, and values. In most cases, movies translate the human spirit regarding imagination. When we imagine something, those thoughts produce images and analogies with all the subjects and those same visions that come into our spirits. This correlation means that imagination and thoughts are directly connected and interdependent. Some people can say that everything that is imagined doesn't correspond to reality, but it's not true. Even to create the structures of society, some people need the necessary imagination to achieve those goals. Imagination can also be defined as vision, and this last one can also be connected to the word anticipation. Most of the science fiction movies that we see bring us images of other worlds and civilizations, images about non-existing technology, but in fact they are in its majority nothing but anticipating events. History proved that famous scientists were initially considered as mere visionaries, as they could not prove their thoughts and visions. They were right after all. Jules Verne wrote about events and technology that makes an intrinsic part of today's lives. At the time, it was also called science fiction or visionary reading. Even at the level of great scientists such as Einstein, we can verify that there are lots of his theories that until now could not be proven, as he was a visionary in the first place. Those visions are nothing but the result of their imagination, and most of those thoughts were brought to them by creation, because all answers to our doubts and problems always have a solution produced by a higher entity. To make it simple, let's say that not even Einstein was able to write on a blackboard the formula of his IQ, as a virtuoso musician cannot explain about his capacity to play that way. If we would ask Jimi Hendrix how come he played guitar that way, probably he would answer, "I ignore it. It's the only way I know." So, imagination is something brought by creation as we make part of her. Musicians, painters, poets and other related arts and artists have moments of inspiration to be able to express themselves. We can say that inspiration is nothing but the convergence of synchronized thoughts that are the result of our imagination. Of course, there are several kinds of imagination: good and bad, positive and negative, right and wrong as other things and situations in life. John Lennon wrote and sang Imagine, a universal hymn about love among people, and at the same time a message about our final destination, about creation. To imagine is the same as to dream. Dreams are nothing but reflexes of our imagination. Creation is nothing but an endless source of imagination that originated everything in a universal scale. I wrote something translating my thoughts in that sense and representing my dreams. Here's Hank Beukema, master of the spoken word, reading the poem To Dream.
To dream, how I would like. How I wish to convey my thoughts, my love, the way I feel. How I wish I could give the things that exist within me, be able to share an endless dream. How I would like to see the tulips bloom in an eternal spring, without further on an outgoing autumn comes along. How I would like to believe that I'm not alone, despite living in solitude, that I'm not a unique being lost within the crowd of the whole that surrounds us. An abstract idea to any conventional concept about what is commonly called existence. How I would like to feel the union, the convergence, the result of my natural existence, escaping the universal cycle of the beginning and the end. How I would like to overcome all barriers, the many borders men outlined, to contradict without adulterating the rules that God created. How I would like to stay eternally looking, but seeing nothing, eternally walking, but achieving nowhere, eternally loving without hurting someone. Escape the bad, the frightful, and stay in my dream.
After all, we all dream and stay in that dream as a form of creating a distance between ourselves and everything that surrounds us. Dreams, imagination, and visions are nothing but thoughts. Never stop dreaming. We have to be able to imagine being able to live. A child lives his first years in an imaginary world, as crucial as it is for him to breathe. War prisoners created their imaginary world to be able to survive and gain the necessary strength to survive. Empires were built because there were people who had the necessary imagination or vision that it would become possible to achieve those goals. No matter what age we are, never stop dreaming, mostly the kind of dreams that can make us go back in time, bringing us happiness by imagining that we are still living in the past, being a child again. We consolidate the feelings of the present and the future by the fact of doing so. A recent poem that I dedicated to the other half of my life, my love, my friend, my sister and my accomplice, is called What Makes Me Dream, and this is my last poem that I dedicated to her when she was still alive. Our lives were always a struggle, fighting against extreme difficulties and obstacles that life and people put on our road, but we were strong enough to continue without giving up our ideals and values, as those two elements made an intrinsic part of our characters. We were survivors in the middle of the jungle of life. Beukema reads the poem What Makes Me Dream.
What makes me dream? What makes me dream is to see you and me walking together on a road without end. What makes me dream is to see in your eyes all oceans, see you through the years without time passing by. What makes me dream is the beauty of waking up without abandoning what we were, what we are, and what we will be. What makes me dream is the will to fly using your wings, be at your side, walking in the sky, lifting the veil, the fear in your eyes. What makes me dream is to want to change, want to create what could not be reached in the past or at the immediate, but that both of us together will achieve. What makes me dream is wanting to come back in time, want to relive everything that made us win, even what made us suffer, without giving up of what makes us dream.
The Diary of Thoughts, end of Part 5, written by c.Pacheco.